Okay, so today let's dive into something pretty fundamental to all of us, food.
Yeah.
We've all been seeing this like huge wave of plant-based everything,
Yeah.
right? Like oat milk in your coffee, pea protein, the deal.
Absolutely. It's everywhere
It's
now.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And it got us thinking, what's the story behind this shift?
Right.
And that's what led us to this company, Hampton Creek. They're known as Just Inc.
Yeah. They're an interesting case study for sure.
Because they were kind of ahead of the curve, right? I mean, this wasn't just some small niche company.
Not at all.
They had this really ambitious goal from the get-go,
Yeah, they wanted to completely transform how we eat, and that's not an exaggeration.
which is a pretty bold statement to make when you're going up against
Yeah.
like big food, the giants of the industry.
Right. It's like they were taking on the entire system.
Exactly. So we're not just talking about like veggie burgers here.
No, not just some niche product.
They were coming for the heart of your pantry, the stuff everyone uses every day.
The staples.
Yeah, the staples. And to understand why that's such a big deal,
Hmm.
I think we need to understand the why behind Hampton Creek, like what was driving them.
Yeah, and it goes deeper than just, let's make some plant-based food. They were really motivated by the environmental impact of conventional food production.
So paint that picture for us.
Right.
Why was this such a big deal?
Well, think about something as basic as an egg.
Okay.
Did you know that a single egg requires over 50 gallons of water to produce?
50 gallons for one egg.
50 gallons. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Now multiply that by the billions of eggs consumed globally.
Wow, yeah, that's...
It's a staggering amount of resources. And that's just one example. So Hampton Creek saw this massive inefficiency and thought, what if we could create plant-based alternatives that were so good, so indistinguishable from the real thing, that people would actually choose them?
Okay, so they were going after big food with plant-based mayo.
They were bold move, right?
That's a bold move.
It was a brilliant move. They identified a product that was ubiquitous, something found in almost every refrigerator. By creating a delicious plant-based alternative, they were tapping into a growing market of consumers who are increasingly aware of the impact their food choices have on their health and the planet.
It's that whole idea of voting with your wallet, where consumers see their purchases as a form of activism.
Exactly. And that's exactly what Hampton Creek was banking on.
So that's their claim to fame, right? They're just mayo.
Bingo. Just Mayo was their flagship product, and it's a great example of how they combined cutting-edge science with savvy marketing. We're not just talking about tinkering with recipes here. They built a team of scientists who were pioneers in plant-based food technology.
So what was their secret? How do you make plants act like eggs?
Well, one of their key innovations was using a protein found in Canadian yellow peas.
Canadian yellow pea.
Yeah, it sounds random, right?
A little bit.
But this particular protein has these remarkable emulsifying properties, meaning it can bind liquids together just like egg yolks do in mayonnaise.
Interesting. So they found a plant-based ingredient that could mimic the functionality of eggs.
Precisely. And that was just the beginning. They were combing through plant databases looking for proteins that could mimic everything from the binding properties of eggs to the texture of meat.
So basically, they were on a mission to hack the food system using plants.
Exactly. And their timing was perfect because this innovation wasn't happening in a vacuum. It coincided with a cultural shift, with consumers demanding more from the companies they support.
Right. People are way more conscious now about what they're putting into their bodies and where their food comes from.
Absolutely. Consumers, especially younger generations, are savvy. They can see through BS. They're looking for companies that align with their values, demanding transparency, ethical sourcing, and sustainable practices.
And Hampton Creek understood this shift.
They did. It was a core part of their brand identity from day one.
So they were tapping into this idea of voting with your wallet, where consumers see their purchases as a form of activism.
100%. And they knew that to succeed, they needed to get their product in front of those consumers. That's where their partnership strategy came in.
Because even with a great product and a powerful message, breaking into the established food industry couldn't have been easy.
Oh, it was a huge challenge. But they found a way. Instead of trying to compete head-on with the established giants, they strategically partnered with major retailers.
Interesting. So they went for like a Trojan horse approach.
Kind of. They managed to secure shelf space for Just Mayo right alongside traditional mayonnaise brands.
And they snuck right in the back door.
Exactly. And that visibility was crucial in introducing their products to a wider audience and establishing themselves as a serious contender in the market.
So we've got groundbreaking science, a strong ethical stance, and some seriously savvy business moves. Sounds like the perfect recipe for success.
It certainly seemed that way. But as Hampton Creek would soon learn, even the most promising journeys can have some unexpected detours.
Right? Because what's a good startup story without a few bumps in the road?
Totally. And Hampton Creek's journey was definitely not without its challenges. Ambition is great, but it can sometimes lead to, some missteps.
So what were some of those learning opportunities, as we like to call them?
Well, the article points to three main challenges. They had some legal battles, internal growing pains as they tried to scale up really quickly, and then, of course, the whole investor pressure thing.
Okay, so let's unpack those, starting with the legal stuff. What was this whole debacle about the word Mayo? It sounds kind of ridiculous when you say it out loud.
I know, right? But it's a perfect example of how even the smallest details can come back to bite you, especially in an industry as regulated as food.
So what happened? Did the dictionary police come after them?
Basically, the American Egg Board, they're not messing around. They actually sued Hampton Creek for calling their product Mayo.
Seriously, they got sued over a word.
Yep. They argued that it violated regulations because just Mayo didn't contain any, actual eggs.
Oh, talk about a hard-boiled approach.
Right. You'd think they'd have bigger fish to fry.
So what happened? Did Hampton Creek have to change the name of their product?
They eventually won the lawsuit, but not without a lot of back and forth and legal fees. It definitely caused some damage to their reputation, too.
That's a shame, because it seems like their heart was in the right place.
It's a good reminder that even when you're trying to disrupt an industry, you still have to play by the rules. At least be prepared for the consequences if you don't.
So, lesson learned, don't mess with Big Mayo. Got it. Okay, what about those growing pains they experience? It seems like that would be a good problem to have, right? Your product is in high demand.
Sure, in theory, but rapid growth can be incredibly challenging, especially if you're not prepared for it.
How so?
Well, when you're growing that quickly, things can get chaotic. It's easy to lose sight of your core values and make decisions that you might regret later.
Did that happen with Hampton Creek?
To some extent, yes. There were reports of internal struggles, management issues, even some allegations of cutting corners to meet demand.
Ouch. That's not good.
No, it's not. And those kinds of accusations can really hurt a company's reputation, especially one that's built on transparency and ethical sourcing.
So how do you avoid that? If you're a company that's experiencing rapid growth, what can you do to keep from, imploding?
That's where strategic growth comes in. It's about finding that balance between ambition and sustainability, making sure you have the infrastructure and the team in place to support that growth without compromising your values.
So it's not just about saying yes to every opportunity that comes your way.
Exactly. You need to be smart about it. You need to be prepared. And then there's the added pressure of investors.
Right. Because Hampton Creek did have some pretty big name backers.
They did. And while funding is essential for growth, it can also create this intense pressure to deliver results quickly, which can lead to, some bad decisions.
So did they give in to that pressure?
There were definitely some internal clashes about the company's direction. Some investors wanted to see faster expansion into different product lines, while others were questioning the sustainability of their growth model.
Sounds like a classic startup dilemma.
Yeah.
How do you manage those expectations without compromising your vision?
It's tough. There's no easy answer. But I think it comes down to communication transparency and a shared understanding of what success looks like. It's about setting realistic goals, being upfront about challenges, and involving investors in the decision-making process, but not letting them dictate every move.
So it's about building a true partnership with your investors, not just seeing them as a source of cash.
Exactly. And that requires open and honest dialogue from the very beginning.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Okay.
But I'm curious, what's the takeaway for our listeners? Like, what can we actually learn from Hampton Creek's story?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Well, the source material actually has a whole section on that called How to Replicate, and it's got some really solid advice. Honestly, I think these takeaways are relevant for anyone, whether you're running a company, part of a team, or just, trying to navigate your own life.
Okay, so hit us with those golden nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah.
What can we learn from Hampton Creek?
All right, so first up, and this is huge right now, capitalize on the demand for sustainable products. Hampton Creek proved that consumers really care about this. They want eco-friendly alternatives. And it's not just about food. We're seeing this across the board now. Fashion, technology, even finance.
Yeah, it's like people are way more conscious of their impact on the planet. They want to know where their products come from and how they're made.
Exactly. So no matter what field you're in, think about how you can tap into that desire for sustainability. Can you offer a greener alternative? Can you be more transparent about your environmental practices? These are the questions that consumers are asking.
So takeaway number one, find your sustainable angle.
Exactly. Okay, number two, values matter more than ever. And I think Hampton Creek really nailed this. Consumers today, especially younger generations, they can sniff out BS a mile away.
Oh, yeah, they can tell when a company's just trying to jump on a trend.
Exactly. So it's not enough to just slap a catchy slogan on your website.
Yeah,
You have to actually live your values, from your sourcing and production practices to your treatment of employees and your engagement with social issues.
so it's got to be authentic. It can't just be a marketing ploy.
100%. Okay. And then the third takeaway is something we touched on earlier, but it's worth repeating. Manage growth strategically. Don't just grow for the sake of growing.
Right, because we saw what happened with Hampton Creek.
What?
Their rapid expansion led to some serious internal issues.
Exactly. Growth is important, but not at the cost of your long-term vision or the integrity of your product or service. It's about building a solid foundation, making sure you have the systems and the team in place to support sustainable growth.
So it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Exactly. And that applies to so many things in life, not just business.
Well said. Well, I think Hampton Creek has given us a lot to think about. But before we wrap things up, there's one final thought I want to leave you with.
Okay, sure.
So Hampton Creek ultimately pivoted away from plant-based mayo and focused on something entirely new: lab-grown meat. They're now known for their cultivated meat products, which are amazing. But it makes you wonder, was this always part of the plan? Was their focus on mayo just a stepping stone to a more ambitious goal?
It's an interesting question, right? I mean, it makes sense in a way. They were already pushing the boundaries of food technology with their plant-based products, so why not take it a step further and try to create meat in a lab?
And they're not the only ones doing it. There are actually quite a few companies now that are developing cultivated meat products.
It's definitely a growing trend, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Will consumers embrace lab-grown meat? Will it eventually replace traditional meat production?
Those are questions for another deep dive. But it just goes to show that the food industry is constantly evolving, and companies like Hampton Creek just ain't. They're at the forefront of that innovation.
Absolutely. They've definitely made their mark. And I think they'll continue to be a major player in the future of food.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today. But we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Hampton Creek, Just Inc., and the future of food.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
And who knows, maybe one of you listening will be the next food revolutionary.
Keep those ideas coming. We need them.
Until next time, stay curious.